Okay, my big muscular friend, I saw you the other night on Jimmy Kimmel, kind of making fun of me. Telling the whole world about how you tricked me into doing the worst movie ever made.
Let me ask you something. When's the last time one sentence on late night made people stop scrolling? Because that's exactly what happened here. One line, one wink at a legendary actor, and suddenly the whole internet's arguing about who gets to speak for Hollywood now. Jimmy Kimmel dropped a pointed crack about Sylvester Stallone after Sly praised a certain former president as a second George Washington, and for a minute it felt like an old rivalry woke up again. Only this time the real fight wasn't in a boxing ring. Kimmel's line did what late-night lines are built to do. Sting just enough to trend. Clips of the monologue started ricocheting around and the edits were instant. Side-by-sides of Sly on the red carpet, throwbacks to Rocky II training montages, and more than a few "did he really say that" captions. Folks weren't just debating the joke, they were debating the man behind it. 50 years of grit and a pen that wrote him from bit parts to the top of the call sheet. And that's where the internet expected fireworks from Stallone. Big speech, bigger anger, maybe a call out by name. Instead, he slipped on a grin and chose mischief over fury. He put out a playful, needling riff. Think of it as Sly doing Sly, tipping his hat to that old "stop or my mom will shoot" lore and teasing just enough to make you smirk. It wasn't noisy, it didn't beg for oxygen. It was a relaxed counterpunch from a guy who's learned that sometimes the lightest touch leaves the heaviest mark. Here's why that mattered. This wasn't only about a monologue or a meme. It hit during a moment when audiences are already testing whether late night still feels like their place. People are watching shows get pulled, hosts get blasted, and whole formats questioned in real time. Another day, another headline about what a network will or won't air, and you can feel viewers quietly moving towards spaces where guests can just talk. That's the oxygen this clip breathed. You had Kimmel doing what Kimmel does. Sharp, quick, topical.
Nah. Does it bother me? Nah. Is it burnt into my memory like a horrible scar? Nah. Well, maybe just a little bit. So anyway, as you know, I write, which is something you don't. Oh, did I say that?
And you had Stallone easing into a tone he's comfortable with now. Measured, a little wry, not begging for a fight, just letting people read between the lines. It's the difference between a stage built for a 5-minute segment and a life built across decades. And audiences, whether they admit it or not, could feel the distance. Online, the comment section split the room. Nostalgia edits began flooding in. The steps at the museum, the taped hands, the bell. There's this unspoken rule that if you've been part of a fan's life for half a century, a single jab isn't just about you anymore. It's about what you represent. Some people took the late night line as business as usual. Punch, rim shot, cut to commercial. Others saw it as a knock on someone they grew up rooting for. A guy whose wins and losses sat right next to theirs on VHS shelves and streaming queues. The same 10-second clip can be a joke and a verdict depending on who's holding the phone. But peel back the memes and there's a bigger thing humming underneath. Late night thrives on compression. Tidy arcs, tightly tuned jokes, guests who pop in, charm the room, and leave before the credits. The last few years, audiences have started voting with their ears. Let the conversation breathe, let it wander, let the questions get weird. The shows that still cut through are the ones that feel like there's no net. And every time a late night dust-up turns into a culture fight, that door toward long form swings a little wider. Which brings us back to Sly. You don't last this long in Hollywood without understanding mirrors. The louder things got, the quieter he stayed. He's been letting people see the person behind the persona, on camera, off camera, in rooms that aren't pre-lit for applause. And audiences reward that. It's a small thing, but you notice it. When a legend chooses restraint, the room gets curious. And curiosity, more than ever, is what keeps people from clicking away. But this is where the story takes a turn. Because the moment you frame this as Stallone versus Kimmel, you kinda miss the point. It's not really a two-man feud. It's a stress test for how we want to hear from celebrities at all. Do we want the constraints of a desk and a clock, or the sprawl of a couch and time to think?
And I've decided to write a sequel called Stop or Your Grandmother Will Beat Your Ass. And I way through. Anyway, you keep punching, big guy, and good luck with your film.
Do we want an edit that reduces a life to one page, or a space where the edit never comes? That, quietly, is what Sly's calm reply exposed. The format, not just the punchline. If you've watched his recent run, you know the theme. Work, family, craft, and the weird luck of landing on your feet after decades of ducking punches you never saw coming. That's why fans respond when he talks about earning your wins the unglamorous way. Even in light moments, he tends to steer toward the grind, the kind that never trends but always pays. Pair that with the fact that he's kept building things people actually watch, from character-driven TV to a reality window into his home life, and you get the vibe of a guy who understands the difference between attention and respect. And it's funny, once the crowd locked onto that, the debate around Kimmel started to sound like a referendum on late night itself. Is the desk still the place for risky conversations, or is it the place where risk goes to get sanded down? On a good night, late night can still move a mountain. On a cautious night, it can feel like you're watching a tightrope walker with a harness. The audience can tell which night it is in the first 30 seconds. And if you think that sounds like Hollywood folklore, wait until you hear the part that fans kept repeating wasn't even the words, it was the tone. A jab landed, a legend smiled, the air in the room changed. People posted their favorite Stallone scenes, Rocky's run, Rambo's stare, little moments where the camera caught something human, and the subtext wrote itself. Some folks value a polished joke, others value a seasoned point of view. None of this means Kimmel's wrong to do his job or that Sly's above a punchline. It just means audiences are listening differently now. They want sincerity to sound like sincerity, not strategy. And that's why the online skirmish spilled into bigger questions.
Washington defended this country. Without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations!
I guess those punches Rocky took to the head were real after all. George Washington was the father of our country. Donald Trump is the father of Eric. Big difference there.
Are we silencing people we disagree with? Or are we just curating the safest possible show? Are we confusing a clean edit with a real conversation? Are we punishing icons for having mileage? Or asking them to read from the same cue card as everyone else? The truth is probably less dramatic than the comments make it, but the feeling is real. When viewers suspect a format can't hold a complicated human being, they go looking for a format that can. Zoom out and you see how odd this whole dust-up really is. One man says a thing on TV, another man shrugs and chuckles, the audience projects 10 years of media fatigue onto both. Meanwhile, the actual business of entertainment keeps shifting. Networks making impossible calls, shows getting benched, and talent figuring out how to keep a relationship with people who no longer watch at the same time on the same channel in the same mood. What Stallone did, intentionally or not, was prove a small point with big consequences. You don't need to win the argument to win the room. You just need to sound like yourself. That thread runs through everything he's still doing. Roles that let him show the dents as well as the shine. Stories that give him space to be wry instead of loud. Even reality moments where you see the dad more than the icon. That's currency now. Audiences can sniff out the difference between a segment and a person in about 5 seconds. And before we wrap, there's one final detail. This whole mini-feud didn't crown a winner, it revealed a preference. People are hungry for conversations that don't feel pre-approved. They'll take a messy truth over a neat setup any night of the week. And when a veteran who's seen every version of Hollywood decides to answer a spotlight with a grin instead of a speech, that tells you he understands exactly where the crowd is moved. Kimmel did his job, Stallone did his, the audience decided what they wanted to watch next. So, what did we actually learn? That a single joke can spark a bigger question about how the industry talks to itself, that a light touch can land like a heavyweight, and that the place where you say something matters almost as much as the thing you say. If you're here for the unfiltered version, less polish, more pulse, stick around. Drop your take in the comments. Did the measured reply beat the monologue for you, or are you still team late night lightning? If you felt this one, hit like and subscribe for the next deep dive, because the next harmless line is already loading in someone's teleprompter.